Good morning, everyone. Who Feeds Bangalore is an exploration into the different forces that shape how the city of Bengaluru eats. It's a participatory research project fueled by strong doses of curiosity and collective community thinking and doing to get a clearer idea of the people who feed Bangalore. At Science Gallery's exhibition Phytopia, we will dive into Bengaluru, exploring the relationship the city has with plants through a 2-day workshop that includes conversations, a bit of cooking, and creating. Thank you for joining us today. This session is in collaboration with the Bengaluru Sustainability Forum, an interinstitutional collaborative initiative that aims to address issues relating to long-term sustainability of urban and peri-urban landscapes. So before we get started, some general housekeeping. Please do keep your microphone and video turned off. Please ask your questions in the chat section, and the mediator of the session, which is me, will ask your questions to the speaker in the time allocated for Q&A. The session is being recorded and is also being live streamed to YouTube. We'll drop a link in the chat. Our first speaker for today is Dr. Prabhakar Rao. Dr. Rao has been a seed keeper for over 25 years, collecting indigenous native vegetable seeds that are on the brink of extinction. His travels have taken him to remote parts of the world where his interactions with older generation of farmers has allowed him to access these forgotten varieties. Today, Dr. Rao will talk to us about the city's indigenous seeds, edible plant biodiversity, why it's now disappearing, and what we can do to preserve our future. Here, over to Dr. Rao for Tales from a Seed Keeper.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And I thank Bangalore Sustainability Forum for giving me this opportunity to kick off this wonderful event, Phytopia. And let me just do a quick screen share for you, because there is an infographic that I find especially powerful. And this is actually something that set me off on the journey that I am on right now. And if you look at this particular infographic, it basically tells us what happened to our vegetables. A century ago, and this data collected somewhere in the beginning of the 1900s, just look at what was there. And this is just for a small section of vegetables, and this is essentially in the United States. Because this research was done, but it's not very different across the world. Just look at it. If you went to the market in 1900, you would find 288 types of beets, 544 types of cabbages, 307 types of sweet corn. You've got 408 varieties of peas. You've got 463 varieties of radishes, 408 varieties of tomatoes, 285 varieties of cucumbers, and the list goes on. But in 1983, when a survey was done, you can see how much we had lost. This is 1983. If I do that research in 2020, I tell you, this is going to be even more shocking. And you can see in 80 years what happened. From 288 beets, it became 17 beets. From 408 varieties of tomatoes, it's just become 79 varieties of tomatoes. Lettuces, if we take, from 497 varieties of lettuces, there are just 36. And this is, I'm talking about 1983. So when we look at something like this, it is shocking to me because we have allowed biodiversity to just disappear right under our noses. And we need to be aware of this because biodiversity of a vegetable heirloom, vegetable variety, is as important to us as a whale that is being threatened, or a tiger that's being threatened, or a bird that's being threatened. While our media driven society makes so much of noise about things that are visible, okay, save the tiger campaign, save a bird campaign, save the whale campaign, save whatever, so many campaigns, but never have you heard about bindi bachao campaign. Have you heard about anybody say, let's save the okra or let's save the tomato? We don't hear about this because we just let it happen under the radar. When we go to the market, there are vegetables, so we buy them and we bring them, and we think that everything is hunky dory because there is no campaign to save vegetables. We just feel that everything is okay because if something was wrong, it would have been all over the headlines, right? But it's not. But the real fact is, vegetable biodiversity has been at an all-time low. It's like disappearing, and it's disappearing so fast that it's simply frightening. The reason why we should save vegetables is not just because they are beautiful, they are tasty, they are extremely easy to grow, they adapt to various environments and climate changes, but because they represent our heritage as well. So many of our culinary dishes are based on specific vegetables. And because those vegetables are not there in the market today, people don't cook those dishes anymore. We have lost connection to our own culinary heritage. And therefore, in this short presentation, what I would like to just bring to your awareness is, be aware that we are losing vegetables at an alarming rate. And unless we start shouting from the rooftops, and we have forums like this where people get exposed and sensitized to what's happening, we will lose them all. And then we will only get what is there in the market today, that is rather tasteless. It just looks very nice. It looks very fresh, very uniform, very shiny, very polished, and it's loaded with pesticide residues. That's all we'll be left with. Yeah. So a little quick glimpse into why this has happened over the past 100 years. Not even 100 years. I'm talking about something like the past 70 years. What happened was, let me do a little bit of screen share here again so that I take you through the story of our seed keepers. Now, for thousands of years, say 10,000 years, if that is what the age of agriculture on this planet is, for 10,000 years, the farmers were the keepers of seed. Seeds belong to all of humanity. Seeds were meant to be shared with everybody, and it was a common cultural resource across the planet. No single company or entity ever owned the seed. Not even the farmers owned seed. It was a gift from nature that through millions of years of evolution provided to the human population. And this was considered a common property for all mankind. Then comes the Green Revolution, where we start developing high yielding agriculture, yeah, high tech agriculture. And then we start developing varieties which respond to fertilizers. And those fertilizer responsive varieties then grow very fast, but they are intrinsically, inherently very weak because they are like a baby that's grown on formula food. Yeah, one little cold and the baby falls sick. Same thing with these hybrids and the GMO varieties of vegetables. They may look very nice, the plant, but it is so susceptible to all kinds of diseases. So then you spray pesticides, you spray insecticides, you spray nematicides, you spray weedicides, pack that whole produce with toxic residues and make them nice and shiny and polished. And then the people's acceptance of food in the market is now dictated by what looks very glossy, what doesn't have a single insect in it, a single dent in it, a single spot on it, what looks very lush and very nice to hold, touch. That's all that our criteria are today when we go buy vegetables. Whereas probably the healthiest vegetable will be the one that doesn't look too good, probably has one or two insects in it. If the vegetable is good for the insect, it's good for you too. That means it does not have toxic pesticide residues in it. Yeah. And something that doesn't look uniform. Nature never creates anything uniform. Even you take every human being in this population, we are different. That's what nature wants. It needs diversity, but we want to mass produce uniform food. Yeah. So because the green revolution and the industrial agriculture happened, somebody decided that seeds should be made in such a way that the farmer cannot make seeds himself. That came the hybrid revolution, hybrid wheat revolution, hybrid rice revolution, hybrid corn revolution, soya revolution. And today, any vegetable seed that you will buy in the market from the companies is either GMO or it is hybrid only. You do not get heirloom vegetable seeds if you go to the shop in the market, because the companies have completely taken over the trade of seed, and they make seeds where the farmer is compelled to buy seeds every season. He has to go back and buy new seeds because from the hybrid seed, you cannot make seed. Yeah, because every seed that you plant will be of a different type of plant and you can't grow a crop from that. Okay, so this is what happened. And I got interested in this when I was being an architect. I traveled the world and took me to very remote parts of the world. I used to be the personal designer for His Highness the Aga Khan at one point, and he has projects all over the world. And it took me to very remote areas where I used to go and meet the old farmers, the older generation of farmers, talk to them, speak to them about the old varieties that are not seen anymore. And a few of them would be gracious enough to trust me with a small portion of their seed. And that's how my journey into seed keeping began. When I came back to India in 2011, I then started testing about 560 varieties of seeds that I had collected, largely from India, but also across the world. And then when I put them all together and started stabilizing them genetically and ecologically and environmentally, and made sure that they multiplied, produced the seeds which farmers could make seeds from seeds, or home gardeners could make seeds from seeds, then I stabilized. And roughly today I have maybe around 200 varieties of vegetables, which I am happy to say are still safe in this planet. And my biggest strength is urban gardeners with whom I share these seeds. They multiply, they share it with their friends and whatever. And somewhere in this planet, these seeds are still there. And they are beautiful seeds. Like if you just see the collection, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are all beans, various kinds of beans. And I've got so many varieties of beans. And each of them tasty. You know, most of these beans, you can actually eat them raw in a salad. You can just slice them, put them in a salad, and you can eat them raw. They are so delicious. Look at the kind of tomatoes, like this one, which looks like a grape. You've got something that looks like a small bulb. And I have got more than 27 varieties of tomatoes on my website right now. Each of them has its own flavor, it's got its own texture, it's got its own taste, it's got its own use. Some are for sauces, some are for chutneys, some are for cooking, some are for salads. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Okras, have you seen varieties of okras, like the purple okra? You've got this one which is it looks like nature took a paintbrush and painted it. You've got this which is called the Star of David, because if you cut it, it looks like the six-pointed star. You've got this white one. You've got this spineless one. I've got a one from Kerala which is called the elephant's tusk. It really looks like an elephant tusk. It's a huge okra. Various types of basils, and you've got these bottle gourds and lettuces and courgettes and various types of squashes. I mean, the list goes on, you know. You've got just so much happening. And one of the things that I realized was Karnataka has a huge tradition. And this is a book that I stumbled upon called Super Shastra, and it was written by Mangarasa the third, and it was in 1508. It was basically culinary cooking in the royal court. We also have the Bhojana Katuhala, which was in 1670 AD, and Shiva Tattva Ratnakara in 1700. Now, the reason why I'm talking about these books is because when you go through the recipes in these books, this is our culinary heritage. You know, most of the varieties of vegetables that we eat today, like the tomatoes and the cauliflowers and the cabbages, these came in much later. These were brought in by the European traders, and then we adapted them and we started growing these vegetables. Otherwise, the traditional vegetables, which are listed in these books, these vegetables are nowhere to be seen in the market today. And I have just taken the example of just two such vegetables, which from the book, and tried to make a little bit of a recipe, which is literally a transliteration to suit the way we read recipes today. And one is this plant, which is called the Gunta Barangi in Kannada. Its scientific name is Clerodendron serratum, and it is actually till recently, till urbanization started to eat up our surrounds, this was actually a seasonal plant which grew during the monsoon period. Actually, right now, if I go out just about 15 minutes from where I stay, I'm at the junction of Nice Road and Kanakpura Road, and if I walk up 15 minutes, I will find hordes of these plants that are in flower, exactly like this photograph which I have taken. And you will see this plant all over the place. You know, we used to make dishes and eat this plant. It was a part of our culinary heritage. More so because many of these, which we label today as weeds, these were having seasonal health medicinal benefits. During this period of rains, when many of us used to fall sick because of the way weather change and all the new microbes in the air and things like that, these are the plants that, this is the kind of plant that one would eat seasonally, because nature had a way of working around what your diet should be. And as you can see from this recipe, it's such a simple recipe, but trust me, I have I have eaten this dish. I've had this cooked and eaten. It is delicious. The flavor of this particular plant, it is delicious. So heirloom seeds are one part of the story, but even the wild vegetables and greens that are available to us, we seem to have completely forgotten. I'll put another one on the screen share now, which is this particular plant, which is called the air tomato. In Kannada, we call it heggenasu. Genasu is a potato. Heggenasu is the name given to this particular potato, and it belongs to the genus Diascoria. and the particular species is Diascoria Balbifera. And this particular plant is actually a plant you will find in the wild. You find this all over India, from West Bengal to Maharashtra to Western Ghats. And this particular photograph I've taken was in the Bannerghatta Nature Reserve. And it is a beautiful plant because it has these potatoes which actually hang in the air. And that is the name, it gets the name air potato. Yeah, I've sort of made a relatable recipe for this air potato, taken from the Super Sutra. And Heggenasu today, you will not find in the market. There was a time, even me as a kid, I remember my grandmother bringing Heggenasu as a delicacy. And then she would make this wonderful dish out of this with the coconut milk. In this one, there is no coconut milk, but apart from using grated coconut, she used to use coconut milk to sort of cook it. And it used to be a delicious dish. Therefore, we need to sort of really look at. There is another vegetable in Karnataka, which today has almost led to a dish that is vanished. And that dish is called the Vangi Bath. You know, Vangi Bath was an extremely popular dish. And I'll tell you why it was a popular dish. Because it used to be made using a special brinjal. See, brinjal is one of our native vegetables of India, especially southern India and central India. And brinjals have been there for centuries in this country, in this part of the globe. And we have many varieties. In my own Hariyalee Seeds, I have more than 25, 30 types of brinjals that I grow. Now, there was a variety that was called Yerengere Badnekai. This is a beautiful light green colored brinjal, which grew near Mandya district, near Mysore, in a village called Yerengere. And when you made Vangi Bath with that Yerengere Badnekai, the Vangi Bath is outstanding. Outstanding. Even today, some of the traditional restaurants which serve Vangi Bath, especially in the Baswangudi and the Chamrajpet area, they only make Vangi Bath when they can get the real Yerengere Badnekai. Otherwise, they don't make it, because you get this similar looking brinjal in the market. It's a hybrid. Okay, it is tasteless. It is so tasteless that people stopped making Vangi Bath because that dish didn't have a zing to it. And if you really want to taste Vangi Bath, then you need to make it with this particular brinjal. You don't have this brinjal, you don't have a dish. That's how important vegetables are to us. Therefore, I sort of conclude my little presentation here more to say that we need to revive our native vegetables big time, especially now that we understand that climate change is a reality. We are going to get extreme oscillations of climate as we go through into the future. We need genetic diversity, and nothing other than heirloom seeds, nati vegetables, desi vegetables have that diversity. So if we don't save that point something percent of the vegetable diversity that is left in this planet, then doom is definitely looking at us, because all we will have left to eat would be then some synthetically processed food. I'm sure they will make something that looks like a potato using some, processed flour and, giving it some texture and color, but it's not going to be the same. Therefore, I conclude this little presentation just to sort of introduce you that there is something called native vegetables, which we need desperately to preserve, a glimpse at the diversity that there is, just a small glimpse, and a couple of recipes to show you how much of our heritage is at stake, our culinary heritage is at stake, if we don't do something about it. With this, I conclude, and I hand you back to Elizabeth if there are any questions or anything else that I need to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rao, for sharing with us that insightful. The talk was really insightful. We do just for some people who have joined us recently. If you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we will ask them to Dr. Rao. Um, so, Dr. Rao, the first question, actually, one of the questions that I had was, how do you say we've seen the deep interlinkage between our culinary heritage and between our seeds and what is grown and how one obviously influences the other? Since these vegetables that you've talked about no longer are available in the market, how do you recommend us to go about either saving these seeds or eating them, tasting them, buying them? How can we start ourselves as consumers to look to buy and to recreate these dishes and to actually taste our biodiversity that was once around us?
Right. So my biggest uh, supporters are the urban gardeners, because when they grow these indigenous varieties, you have these purple okras, and you've got this speckled swan gourds, and you've got these wonderful tomatoes that look like a grape and things like that. First of all, it is a social mileage for my urban gardeners, to be honest. They post it on Instagram, they put it on Facebook, 1,000 likes here and there. First it creates a buzz. So first thing that happens is that people come to know about it. And secondly, when you talk to a person on the road and say, do something for sustainable development goals of the United Nations, he has no clue what you're talking about. But if you tell him, if you grow this seed, make seeds from this and share it with your friends, you have contributed to one of the SDGs, which relate to biodiversity. He connects to that. So to me, I believe urban gardeners should grow as far as possible indigenous varieties, make it a kind of a campaign where we say we are going to promote only the indigenous varieties, because these indigenous varieties are so hardy, so easy to grow. And therefore, when you grow them, you don't have to use pesticides, you don't have to use fertilizers. They grow so lush, they are so tasty. So once that awareness is created, then I will start reaching out to the farmers, because a demand has been created. Now the farmers can fill in that gap of supply. Right now, the farmers, if they grow it, they don't have a demand market, a captive market. But once the urban consumers create that demand, farmers will come in, and then we can heave a sigh of relief, because we know that then it's a sustainable cycle to keep these varieties in place.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. R and Monojit are asking, what is ask the state and central governments and agriculture institutes, do they have projects around saving indigenous seeds? And also looking at not only loss of biodiversity, could you tell us a little bit about nutritional loss as well?
Oh, yes. Nutritional loss is huge. For example, let me give you the story of Sona Moti. Sona Moti is a name given to a wheat that was revived by the Art of Living Foundation. The name was given by Sri Ravi Shankar himself, because it looks like a round pearl and it's golden in color. And it is a wheat that has been grown in India for 2,000 years. Okay. For 2,000 years, this wheat has been grown. It is the only wheat which has got folic acid in it, and all its nutritional parameters are at least 1.5 to 3x, 3 times any other hybrid or other improved wheat variety that you grow. But the fact is, it is also low glycemic, and it is very low in gluten. So people who are diabetic or who have allergies to gluten, they find a tremendous benefit. Now, when we revived this variety through the Art of Living network, the farmers were paid 75 rupees for a kilo of this wheat. Today, wheat, hardly you get 20 rupees. Farmers got 75 rupees because we directly linked them to customers. Customers were very happy because they got the most incredible wheat. And then the farmers were happy because they got 3 times the price which they would normally get. Now, could this have been done by the government? Probably yes. But I believe now is the time when I think we need to take these things into our hands as citizens of the country. Because yes, we have seed banks. ICRISAT, for example, has got a wonderful seed bank, but it's all sitting there with the scientists. Where is it in the public? Now, today something happens and we lose that germplasm. It's gone. It is something of a scientific novelty that is kept somewhere by the scientists. But it has to hit mainstream. If my Irangere Badnekai is no more in the market, I really don't care as a citizen whether it is sitting in some university seed bank or not. I want it there in my pot, in my balcony, and I want to pluck two of those brinjals and make wangi bath and enjoy it with my family. So I think it is now time for urbanites to take this, urban gardeners and urban enthusiasts to take it in our own hands. Whatever biodiversity is left, let's bring it mainstream.
Thank you. Definitely. And you're talking about us as like an urban revival of our biodiversity. We've seen in our urban food system players like Zomato and Swiggy have a lot of urban consumers eat restaurants in Bangalore to use these varieties, considering Swiggy and Zomato seem to be extremely popular in our city.
Yes. So it will happen. But for that, what needs to happen is farmers will have to start growing these in quantity. Yeah. So then you can have a supply chain which then feeds into the eateries and the restaurants. The dishes get cooked and the urbanites will order on Swiggy and things like that. We are not there. And that is why I am so afraid, because we are at a tipping point. If we as urbanites don't push this, it's going to roll back and everything is going to disappear. And that's why I am so afraid that unless we take this in our hands and start creating awareness amongst the public that there are these vegetables and we need to start talking about them, promoting them, growing them first in our gardens, and then we can get it into the supply chain and through Swiggy, etc.
Thank you. Ritesh asks, are there books that we can use to find out about these indigenous varieties? And yeah, again, Amrita asks as well, are there any other books we can refer to identify and create these veggies and dishes?
Oh, yes. Samaitupar, that is Meenakshi Ammal's book that was published in 1951. I think Elizabeth knows a lot about it because she and her colleagues have worked with this. I think that's an excellent starting point. And there are so many vegetables in that particular book which are very difficult to find today. And in fact, I am actually in the process of now setting up a exclusive production area for only the vegetables which are lost in these books, like our Super Sutra and Sametupar and all these. So exclusively those vegetables I want to bring back, get the farmers to produce these vegetables and feed it to the urban populace to start making dishes, culinary dishes out of it. So yes, there are books, but again, information about native varieties, so little, precious little.
Do we have any atlas for vegetable variety across India and the globe? Is there any authentic documentation done and available to refer to?
See, unfortunately, no, because vegetables come under cultivars and therefore they are not the botanists in the purview of botanists. These are cultivated vegetables. So they are cultivated varieties. They are called cultivars. So we don't have a compendium. And this is a problem anywhere across the world. If you go to my website, you will hear something called Mount Vesuvius tomato. Now, did I bring that from Italy? No, it was found in Chhattisgarh, but the nearest name that I could find which looked like this tomato was that Mount Vesuvius tomato. Therefore, I put that name as Mount Vesuvius. We do not even have a nomenclature that is standard across the globe. And this is really one of my biggest pain points, because how do I have variety called Meghalaya orange pumpkin. Why is it Meghalaya orange pumpkin? Because I found it there. But it should have a name, isn't it? I mean, if everything has a name, why shouldn't my poor vegetable have a name. Like Irengere Badnekai, just because it comes from the village of Irengere. But I'm sure we should have some kind of at least a national register of heirloom varieties. I think the best work is being done by NGOs. Dr. Vandana Shiva's Navadanya, for example. I mean, she is my mentor. I mean, I look up to her as a guru. And her NGO is doing wonderful work with rice varieties and things like that. I think the NGOs are doing a much better job here, I would say.
Thank you. The next question is from Seher. How can we ensure nati varieties grown in urban areas? Is there a possibility they will, or do they need specific environments to grow in?
Okay, first thing, let me tell you, nati varieties are like street mongrels. Yeah, they are like street dogs. I have one such in my farm, and except for the first shot of rabies that I gave Taquito, name of my dog, I have not spent a pie on that. Never has a doctor come and seen. Never has he fallen sick. He eats whatever I give him. He is vegetarian, by the way, and he is so healthy because he is nati. It's like a country chicken. It's basically intrinsically hardy. So when you're growing a indigenous heirloom vegetable, if you are growing a dosaka, for example, that we get in the Malnad, that cucumber, there is nothing. You just plant the seed and you harvest the crop. There is nothing you need to do. So for urban gardeners, the first mantra is native vegetables are probably the hardiest, most non-demanding plants that you will come across. They don't even respond to fertilizer. You put fertilizer, they die. They just bloat up and die. So that is the nature of heirloom and native vegetables. So just remember, it's like your street dog.
Thank you. Another couple of questions are talking about reviving these traditional indigenous seed culture on a larger scale in other parts of India, and how could you counter the financial might of big corporate agro businesses?
Ha, good question. I am not an activist. I am not anti-corporation, but I feel that if I can educate my end consumer and get a demand that will link them to the farmer producer, direct linkage, then people will go and eat these vegetables because they are so much more nutritious and tasty. And if that linkage is strong, then the corporates will die on their own accord. I don't think we can ever take on the corporates. I think it's a futile exercise to even think that way. I don't think that way. But I think we need to think of an alternative connecting linkage between farmers who grow these vegetables and the urban who asks for these vegetables. My Sona Moti, for example, this April, even before it was harvested, it was completely sold out. It was completely sold out. So that kind of a linkage, if we can eschew, and that was done with the Art of Living Foundation because of their involvement, my involvement in that. But if I can develop strong linkages like that, I don't really have to worry about the corporates.
Thank you. Nidhi Joshi asks, you spoke about how as the climate changes and fluctuations in growing conditions increase, the need for indigenous species increase. What are your thoughts about combining technological solutions of hydroponics or electronic monitoring of growing conditions to supplement the strength of indigenous species?
So indigenous varieties, like for example, let me talk to you about some of the lettuces that I have in Hariyalee. Okay, these are wonderful lettuces. They are all open pollinated. The best thing about it is if you take seed from Hariyalee one time, Hariyalee Seeds one time, you never buy the seed again from Hariyalee because you can make your own seed. This is the fundamental of open pollinated indigenous varieties. You are the owner of the seed and you can do what you want with the seed. Nobody can question you. Okay, this is the fundamental principle. So if we take, for example, heirloom lettuces, they are so much more nutritious. Okay, they are so resistant to diseases and pests. I never have to worry about spraying any kind of pest repellent on my plants because the pests don't come to it. Yeah, It is very lush, it's very tasty, but the pests don't prefer that. They prefer something else. Yeah. But that's another story. Now, would you want to use, for example, you have a small plot of land in the heart of the city, and you want to put up a little greenhouse, you want to do some technology driven production of these heirlooms. I think you've got a gold mine sitting there. I think you've got a gold mine. What can be more better farm to table experience than harvesting something in the city and then giving it to you at home? I mean, to me, I think it'll be a win-win. And I do believe that these are the kind of disruptors we need today in the urban populace, where the urbanites start to grow food to feed the city, not wait for something to come from 200 kilometers away.
Talking a little more about quality of vegetables, Rini asks, usually people believe shopping from Nature's Basket or Food Hall is the best quality they can get. Where do you think we can get an actual know-how of what quality produce is and where can we get it from?
So generally, there are supply chains who brand organic vegetables. It's always pricier, and that's the only way you think in your mind it's good quality, because you're paying through your nose. And if you think that something you have to pay through your nose, then it must be organic, it must be chemical free. The reality is so different today. We had in Art of Living, uh, we took the vegetables from 7 mandis around Bangalore, like Yalahanka and Madiwala and Saraki, and 7 mandis. We took vegetables, sent it to CFTRI in Mysore to analyze for pesticide residues. The results are horrific. There is more than 3,000 times the permissible MRL, the maximum residual limit of these pesticide residues. It is horrific. And what was alarming was some of these vegetables were taken from the supermarkets which had labeled them organic. You not only paid through your nose, but you ate the same poison. Really, if you ask me, even if you have one pot in your balcony, start. The moment you start growing something and you start tasting it, you will move heaven and earth to find chemical free food. And to do that, the best answer is using native varieties.
Thank you very much, sir. I think with that, we'd wrap up with your encouragement to, on our own, start looking, finding, searching, and growing our own food to understand our own culture, our own community, and our own biodiversity. Thank you so much, everyone who has tuned into this session. Thank you, Dr. Rao, for your time and for your knowledge and expertise. If anyone wants to buy some indigenous seeds or learn more about it, you can visit Dr. Prabhakar Rao's website, HariyaaleeSeeds.com, which is Anusha has put it in the chat as well. I would recommend to look at the Science Gallery exhibition, Phytopia, which is incredible, which has a lot more conversation about seeds, biodiversity, lots of talks and activities happening there as well. Do stay tuned as we have 4 more speakers today. Up next is Namit from First Agro and Sakura Fresh, who will be speaking to us about his journey with the science of plants and chefs and restaurants. So that's going to be an